Hello and welcome, neighbor, to the show because you are now tuned into that's right, a brand spanking new Monday Night Live, aka the Hangout Stream, aka the Chill Stream, baby. All fired up, ready to have some fun for April 10th, 2023, and brought to you by yours truly, the man, broadcasting from behind the curtain. You know who I am. Because if you don't know by now, you can visit www.livefreeliverich.com or simply Google this name and you can find out. Well, got another nice full show lined up for you guys this week. Let me go ahead and jump right into the briefing here. It says we'll be double dipping for our featured media segment because I have a video lined up for tonight's hot topic discussion. For reading time, I have a story about a practitioner of the dark arts. Yes. And just like magic, I'm going to show you guys how you can get your hands on some killer books absolutely free. But first things first, I like to take this time, slide right into my first segment of the night, where I like to shine a spotlight on some books. That's right. That are currently available or coming soon to an online store near you. Yes, it's true. First up tonight, I have from Twitter, Leandra Simone. Leandra writes, "Dancing on the Edge of Moonlight. Julian is a musician with two sides. There's the arrogant frontman with attitude and the quiet genius behind him. Kara is intrigued by one, but can't stand the other. I wonder which one. What's a girl to do?" This is Dancing on the Edge of Moonlight by Leandra Simone. Of course, all these books that you see in this first segment are books that are suggested to me directly by the publishers themselves, whether they be self-pubbed authors, comes from an indie label, or a small press company. All right. Dancing on the Edge of Moonlight. Kara, while feeling stuck in her job, is abruptly and unfairly fired. She is seething in her office and in the midst of destroying company property when she hears a wolf whistle. She is seething in her office and in the midst of destroying company property. She hears a wolf whistle. She discovers it's the company's owner, the highly affluent and infamous musician Julian Aristo Starr. Kara is aware of his alleged dual personalities as Aristo, the consummate perfectionist, performer, and manipulator, and Julian, the reclusive, creative genius behind the man. Unfortunately, it's Aristo. She is unimpressed. Running out of time to clear the premises, Kara bolts out the building only to encounter Julian, a totally different person than Aristo. Now she's intrigued. Julian convinces her to have dinner with him. The following morning, she wakes from an outrageous nightmare that just might be true, given the men's purple underwear on her mantle. 301 pages of Black and African American women's fiction, contemporary romance. Okay. Next up, we have from, let's see who we have here. This is from Ron Richie, aka Existential on Twitter. He writes, curiosity brought him here from beyond time and space. Now he's trapped. What will he do? Who is he? This is Harpie by Ron Richie. All right. He came from another universe. He is older than the stars of our galaxy. Curiosity has brought him to our world. Now he is stranded, an immortal being in a world of mortals. He wants to blend in and live among us. He has never been exposed to humans before. He resembles a creature from ancient human mythology literature, a creature called a harpy. 141 pages of first contact science fiction, alien invasion science fiction. If you're just joining the stream, you can go ahead, drop me, you say hello in the chat. I always say there's no need to be shy. I just like to know who took the time to stop by. All right. We got a couple more books to cover. Then we'll keep it moving. Next up, we have from Blake Carpenter. Blake writes, I've got a darker fantasy out about swords, tragic love, revenge, more swords, magic tech, trains and airships, swords, guns, swords, and more swords, including magic swords, because everything is better with swords. Thanks for the opportunity to share. Wonder if there's going to be swords in this one. This is... Actually, I'll bring this up. This is Deathbringer, the Spell Swords Saga, Book 1. The Spell Swords Saga 1 by Blake Carpenter. Inga Alanir is a sword bearer. She is the latest in a long line of women to inherit a magical weapon called Deathbringer. She's also dead, murdered on her wedding day by the ruthless and covetous noblewoman Yenda Avard, bitch, who steals the sword after killing Inga and her entire family. And yet, some secrets won't stay buried. Deathbringer has a will and a consciousness of its own, and even has the power to raise Inga from the dead for a short time. It warns her that she has 1 week to find and retrieve the sword before death reclaims her permanently. With each day bringing her doom and final demise ever closer, Inga will have to see just how far she's willing to go to achieve her vengeance. Deathbringer is a compositional mix between the violent, grisly hunt for revenge in the film The Nightingale and the tale of Vasher and his talking sword, Nightblood, in Brandon Sanderson's Warbreaker. Fans of dark fantasy, of tragic love stories, and tales about seeking revenge against long odds will enjoy this debut novel by Blake Carpenter in the world of Agarith, where a scorned young widow fights back against the powerful elites that wronged her and begins a journey that might turn the entire world against her. 273 pages of sword and sorcery, dark fantasy horror. Dark fantasy horror. All right. I don't know if it's horror, but continuing in that same vein, this one actually comes from our Discord server. And this one is called Beast Masters Conquest, Volume 1 by TJ Morgan. Now, before I bring this one up, before I read the blurb, that is, I just want to show some of the art. I just want to show the art on the book covers here. So it's gone through a couple different iterations. So I just thought it was worth mentioning, just to kind of show it off a little bit. All right, so this was the first version of his book cover. So you can get a good look at that one there. And then this is the final version. or the remastered version. There's quite a few enhancements I see. So a lot more detail there. It looks a lot more sharp too. I'm going to be reading the blurb on this one directly from his website. So just a little FYI for you guys, if you're ever suggesting any books to me, or you're suggesting your books to me, they don't have to come from Amazon. So if you guys sell your own books, like, or ebooks or whatever, directly through your own website, you can actually do that, and you can share your own a link to your book through your own website. This isn't some sort of Amazon exclusive thing. All right. So here's the blurb. It's not a long one. A military commander betrays his king and declares war on an entire nation, operating under a code name that's synonymous with death. Mortem is a one-man army with a dangerous ability, and he won't let anything stop him from accomplishing his goal. Is this man truly a bloodthirsty monster? Or is he hiding something else underneath all that armor? There it is. Let me see if it says anything. Product details. So we get a little product details here. It says there's a story arc. It says the man behind the monster is a story arc. The genre says action, fantasy, and war. And it has you can get this in paperback or ebook. There's both. Language, English. And those are the books. Those are the books, ladies and gentlemen, for this week. So if you're watching this on the replay, you could probably go ahead, shoot on over to my community tab, and you can, the poll should be up. About time if you're watching this on the replay, and you can cast your vote. Yes, you can cast your vote for which one out of those 4 books you thought had the most text appeal. In other words, which one out of those 4 books would you be most likely to pick up? And if you would like to discover more from the independent market, what you can do is you can head on over to my shorts tab or my playlist tab, and you can open yourself up some mystery packs. Yes, inside each mystery pack is a cover card that reveals a book that has been recognized by the Live Free, Live Rich Network. And in the description section, you will find a link to an editorial written on that book by yours truly. Let's keep on rocking and rolling right into some announcements. All right. So first order of business, these announcements. So the easiest way, if you want to get your work featured on the show, on a future broadcast, what have you, the easiest way to get my attention nowadays, the easiest way to get my attention is to just go ahead and join either the Discord. Just go ahead and join either the Discord or the Gilded group servers. Okay. That is all the proper channels for you to share your work are on both of those servers. There's all these different channels. You can share your books with me. You can share videos with me. You can share your blog posts with me if you write poetry, flash fiction, essays, articles, what have you. Okay. You can share all that stuff with me. Even if you run book clubs or you do reading events, you can share that stuff in there too. There's also channels. For instance, on this segment, I'll usually cover, like, this is when I would cover like crowdfunding campaigns. So if you have crowdfunding campaigns that you'd like me to cover, there's a spot for that as well. What else is there in there? I'm trying to think. Oh yeah, your services. I did add services as well. Now these are writing services, okay, or coaching services, whatever that have to do with with independent publishing. All right, so stuff like that. You can share all that stuff with me, and what I'll do is I go on there. It's basically just a resource, okay? It's like a direct line of connection between you and I, and I can just log. It's easy for me. I can just log on there, and I can see who's sharing what, and I can start planning ahead of time for these shows. So I have everything all set up. That's what I like. Organized. But yeah, other than that, there's no expectations of you. You don't have to check in daily. You don't have to go on there and engage in pleasantries and small talk if you don't want to. You can literally just go on there when you have something to share with me, and that be it. Link the links to those, by the way, are always the links to both of those servers are always in the show notes down below. All right, you guys like freebies? Huh? You like them freebies for free? We got some freebies tonight. These freebies come courtesy of Jeff Kerr. He's full of freebies. He's always keeping me on the up and up with all the freebies, the book funnel freebies. And let's see what he's got for us this week. He says he just shares a link. It says free books equals no risk. These are killer thrillers, baby. Some risk-free killer thrillers, courtesy of Jeff Kerr. Let's take a little peek, shall we? Mm. All right. All right, there it is. The killer thrillers. Killer thrillers, baby. Searching for your next favorite thriller? Look no further. These best-selling authors have teamed up to offer an incredible array of gripping thrillers available for a limited time. I actually asked Jeff on Twitter how long this deal was going to last. So a lot of these, I guess this funnel in particular, this book funnel, is going to last until It's like 7 days, 7 days from when he had shared that tweet. So it still got some time. I think there's like maybe a few more days, three or four more days for this one. So let's just kind of browse here real quick. See what kind of stories we got. So thrillers. A lot of whodunit, murder mysteries, that type of stuff. There's Jeff's book right there. Death Train. We've covered that one on there. He's given that one away before. But there's actually a new one as well to share. And this is, let me see what he has here. Yeah. He has another one. A double dose. And he says, where do you go when no place is safe? So he's got a new one, a new freebie. So let's check this one out real quick. So this one is Into the Fire. So where do you go when no place is safe? You can get your free copy of Into the Fire. So I assume all you're doing here is you're signing up for his newsletter. You'll get a free copy of this book. Let's just go ahead and check out the blurb over here, shall we? A silver Toyota Passo roared up from behind and jerked into a stop. 4 masked men with automatic rifles scrambled out of the vehicle and positioned themselves along the side of the bus. The rude man at the flower stand produced a pistol. He ran to the bus and banged on the door. The door hissed open. The man fired his pistol and shot the driver dead. Children screamed. The man leapt aboard and ordered the children out. They obeyed, crying and hugging each other. Not playing around. Hey, Rainer. Good to see you. Doing a little cooking, huh? Very nice. Yeah, I'm going to be doing that after the stream. I have some pot roast waiting for me. All right, moving right along. Let's talk about the Storytellers Society. The Storytellers Society still accepting open submissions. This is a project that is open to the public. It's a public opportunity here that I started, a little side project that I started early in 2022. It's kind of an outreach, almost like an outreach project for to collaborate with other writers. And whether you are an aspiring author that is yet to have any of your work published, or if you are a published author and you would just like to, expand your creative portfolio a little bit and kind of build a peer-to-peer relationship with yours truly, you can go ahead. What I'm looking for is flash fiction. Okay, flash fiction for this project is fiction that is between 500 all the way up to 2,000 words. All right, and it can be any genre. I actually put a little category drop-down menu on the submission form. I've been kind of going back and I kind of spruced it up a little bit and got rid of some unnecessary details and stuff like that about the project. It's pretty straightforward. It's not really a huge deal. What it is you're going to submit a piece of fiction to me, and if it's approved, then you will effectively book yourself a room at what I'm calling the Hotel del SS, where all the members of the Storyteller Society stay. And what I do is your work will be published through my blog, and I will continue to market that work indefinitely into the future if your work is approved. What else was I going to say? Oh, yeah, this is it. So this is a non-exclusive deal. It's a non-exclusive agreement, I should say, because there's no contracts involved. All you're doing is just agreeing to the terms of service, which basically just means you're giving me permission to publish your work on my blog directly on my website. But it's non-exclusive, meaning that this can be work that you have published somewhere else, or you are able to publish it other places as well. So you retain full copyright and all that. This is a little fun thing that I kind of started on the side. I try to come up with all these different types of ideas where I can kind of try to get other people involved, because not everybody wants to do the same thing. Like, in other words, not everybody wants to start a YouTube channel. Not everybody, is interested in doing a crap ton of social media marketing and stuff like that. So, it's just another way that I've kind of offer an opportunity that is accessible to everybody effectively. And, just give you a way to kind of get your name out there, get your work out there. That doesn't require you to reach into your pocket and pay, technocrats or whatever, who are trying to just prey upon you, because it prey upon independent publishers, writers, and whatnot. And I see somebody else has joined the chat. Herman making the rounds, author. Herman P. Hunter, ladies and gentlemen, author of The Revenant and the Tomb, and his most recent book, The Wizard's Stone. Yes. And I also forgot to mention that Rainer Chen is also an author, has his most recent novel, Poison City, is also available. So we get a lot of authors on here. So the thing about it is, with this show, like, for those of you, if you're watching it, if you're watching this on the replay, a lot of people watch this on the replay, and I can understand, not everybody is always available on a Monday night, while we're live, which is perfectly fine by me. This is why I keep the videos, all the live streams up after the fact. Well, for a couple reasons. But one of those, for those of you who like to catch it on the replay, maybe play it in the background, you listen to it while you're doing other things, what have you, whatever, just to get caught up on the week. That's great. But when you do, I encourage you to go ahead, drop me a comment down below, because once I'm done this isn't one and done and I'm out of here and I'm moving on to the next show. I will go back and I will revisit the previous shows in order to see who's leaving comments. I do have a segment during the show where I actually will address comments that are left on any of the videos left on my channel throughout the week. So I encourage you to leave some comments down below, and some comments, you could say things like, if you've ever picked up any of these books, like I was alluding to here, a lot of the authors tune into these shows. So this is a show, even though this is a show that is kind of focused on independent publishing, the indie scene, I'm trying to come up with a format here where I kind of bring both. I attract an audience of both authors and readers at the same time. So it's like people who are in the indie scene because the indie scene, you may be like every author is a reader, but not every reader may be an author in that case. So, that's why I mean, it's like it's kind of a mixed audience. So if you're going to leave a comment, say if you're a reader and you've read any of these books that I've ever featured on this show, then you should go ahead and drop me a comment down below and let me know, because like I say, a lot of the authors watch these shows, and it might be nice to hear that some people are actually picking up their books and giving them a try. Oh yeah, of course, guys. And FYI, you guys, well, I know it's not it wouldn't make a huge hell of a difference right now, but I don't think you have to just do it in live chat, by the way. I think that you guys can share links in the I'm pretty sure you guys, having the moderator's wrench, you can also share links in the regular comment section as well. I think you can regardless, but either way, you're always welcome to. All right, just last order of business here. We'll just get this out of the way real quick. And that is the LFLR Weekly. This is my weekly newsletter. Not that one. So this is my weekly newsletter. If you want to stay on the up and up with what's going on with the brand in terms of any kind of new releases, updates, and this is where I share every week. I'm going to share all the links of what's going on with the brand. So not just with the show. I will share links to the most recent episode of the show. So for those of you, if you don't have social media, for instance, like you don't do social media and you're not on one of the group servers, then this is the way to go. Just go ahead and go to livefreeliverich.com right on the homepage and just sign up for the newsletter. I send them out once every Saturday. So one newsletter every Saturday has all the links to the newest uploads, to the newest videos, my latest Live Free Live Rich presentation, and which I have some more of those planned for later on. But usually what I do with this channel, I got like four different types of videos that I do. Okay. So for those of you who aren't familiar, so for one type, my main type of video that I do is the live streams. So I do these live streams once a week. This is to kind of encourage some more engagement on the channel. Well, that's the aim, at least. Encourage more engagement on the channel with the live streams, kind of draw in an audience, if you will. And then I have my discussion videos where I try to provoke discussion and stuff like that. I call Hot Topics, which we're going to be getting into, which is actually a segment of the Monday Night Live. But I usually clip them out and I'll upload them as their own separate video during the week. For those of you who missed it or previous ones, just an easy way to kind of catalog it. And then I have my shorts videos. Now I'll say right now, right off the bat, I hate short form media. The newest, like this new age iteration of short form media, it sucks. I really despise it. I think it's just an attention suck. It's horrible. There are so many people that are just getting swept up into this attention sucking, this a vacuum of vacuous content is what I basically consider it. It's just nonsense, the vast majority of it. So what I'm doing, but I know that there are people out there that watch the shorts. So to kind of like avoid the whole like, well, you're doing it type of deal. Yes, I have some short videos, but they're literally, each video is 10 seconds long, and that's the mystery packs. That's how I present the mystery packs. So what I do is it's just like you're opening up the pack, and then inside the pack, you're going to see a cover of whatever book, whatever indie book that I've read before. And inside the description section of that video is a link that will take you away from the short form media and directly to my blog, where you can actually read usually around 1,000-word editorial that I wrote on that book. Okay. So I try to take, I use the short form media, but I try to use it in such a way that I try to, kind of coax people away from the short form media. Like, step away from the short form media. Bad for your brain. Bad for your brain. Yes. So there's that. And then my fourth type of video are my Live Free, Live Rich presentations. So the Live Free, Live Rich presentations could be a variety of different types of videos, but those are like pre-recorded videos that I do, and I usually have some sort of presentation that I'm doing that to offer some sort of, it's substantial in some shape, fashion, or form. So it could be like a video essay. It could be like a lesson. Like I've done one on Storycraft before that focuses on story structure, teaching story structure, and stuff like that. And I do have some planned for later this year, and I'm going to start getting on those. I have at least one that I have. Actually, two. Now that I think of it. All right. And those are the announcements. So if you have any announcements that you'd like to share with me, like I say, go ahead, join the Discord or the Gilded, and just share away. Never be shy to share. If I can fit it into a show, then I will. I'll add it to the queue. If I don't think that it quite, fits into a show, or it's not something that I'd be interested in covering, then I'll just let it slide. No big deal. It's easy as that. So when in doubt, just go ahead and share it. Don't worry about what it is that you're sharing. That's my job. I'll decide what is appropriate for the show and the things that I want to cover. All right. So you can't do wrong as far as that goes. You can't go wrong. All right, let's go into some reading time. I'm excited for this one because this one actually does come from the Gilded. So I had someone on Gilded share a story with me, and this one is Grave, a story of Cerberus the Necromancer. And this is by A.M. Harrison via swordrush.substack. So when you're sharing your links with me, this could come from your own blog, but you don't have to have a website. It could come from your Wattpad. If you do Wattpad, or you do Royal Road, or you do medium.com, any kind of it can be any third-party platform. It could be a Kindle Vella episode if you want to share that with me, and I can kind of introduce people to your serialized fiction project. And I'll read like episode 1, for instance. Or if you publish like the first chapter of a novel on your own website, something like that, So long as I have free access to it, okay? That's all I ask. And we'll bring it on to the show. So let's check it out. It sounds like it's something that's, right up my alley, my type of interest. All right. Grave. Illustration there. All right, let's jump into it, huh? The inadequate shelter of trees were huddled in the cleft of the hill. Their wood all hung in nighttime languidity. The branches were kept long by the caretaker and remained unstirred by the man who was prostrated beneath them. A sky ever weaker of illumination coated the cemetery with soundless observance. It watched him as he laid down, from the time the grass turned wet until it dried, until the noon sun, noon back to night, wrinkles imprinted deeply into the fabric of his clothes as more hours passed. The folds of his disheveled jacket and the creases of his trousers were the least ruined, though, of his person. He whispered delicately to the odd box that rested next to him, the grain of which blended away into the shadows and patterns of grass between them. The specifics of the wood consumed his attention as he conversed with the undertaker, yet the words now, so carelessly impassioned, rightly paled all he had ever spoken before. His ear betrayed him, and it felt as though the world deadened all sound against him. He raised his voice, and no echo returned from against the box. His voice trembled in saddened frustration until he imagined that the leaves above shook in chorus. His throat croaked in dry exhaustion. Who will I walk with now? The festival was yesterday, and I have nothing now, he moaned, unbothered by speaking his thoughts openly to the coffin of his son. Night, sky, and trees layered heavily upon him with immaterial contact. Everything around the old vintner bowed him mercilessly. He had no energy or will to move from this spot. Unintelligible, unprovoked imaginations of a barren future played out inside, where this loss would be compounded by the loss of the few others he held closest. His precious aniline passed too few summers ago, too few for Tarman to have been taken also. Taken scarcely 5 days prior. His conscious mind refused to accept the amount of time nor the violence he saw in the street then. The maelstrom of unhappy memories and tormented portents bore him down into sleep. Garmin, please, a gentle voice spoke. A man shrouded in a square, hooded black cloak reached down and awakened Garmin's still form. From his kneeling position, the solitary hand was intended to comfort the aggrieved father until he rose. Once Garmin came to himself from the sorrow, he slowly pivoted to face whoever disturbed him. He looked up to face above him. He looked up to the face above him and suddenly became aware of the raw ground biting him. Cerberus, Garmin said. He thought hard to recall when he met Cerberus. The mysterious figure appeared from a crowd and seemingly sought Garmin out some time after his tragedy. Cerberus's sorcerous look was not unheard of in Owain, due to its proximity to Auvergne City. Garmin finally answered gruffly, Find yourself another grave and desecrate that. Cerberus was unperturbed by the insult and continued, Sir, I found you help. 2 capable men to lift this burden with me and put your son to ground. I bound myself to this task. Let me take you up. Why do this? Leave me here. I want nothing of you, Garmin stated without emotion. Garmin attempted to seem fierce, but the flame of any anger he mustered was quenched by the deep sadness he resigned himself to. It seemed to Garmin that Sigris sensed his helplessness, his inability to resist. He wondered if the eyes deep inside the black hood pierced his being. Slowly, without a word to further conversation, Garmin was lifted gingerly up and out of the way. He made effort to study who arrived with Sigris from his new distance away, leaned against a tree, yet somehow they were even more mysterious. Neither of the men helped Sigris and awaited for Sigris to lead them in preparing a hole for the coffin. Darkness hid their faces. By their clothes they lived near, torn in places as a laborer might have. Nobody spoke in the course of the hard work to shovel dirt. Garmin saw the commanding hand signals Sigris used periodically to indicate where to dig and place the dirt. He watched while they worked hard until a soft glow showed through the sparse clouds above. A deep hole for the coffin appeared from their handiwork, and they quickly lowered it into place before refilling the dirt over it. When they were done, Sigris sent the others ahead to speak to Garmin. Good sir, I leave you here now. I am deeply sorry for who you have lost, Sigris said softly, his face visible enough for Garmin to notice his sincerity. Sigris, good sir, I leave you here now. I'm deeply sorry for who you have lost, Sigris said softly, his face visible enough for Garmin to notice his sincerity. This is all that I can give you. Without waiting for a reply, Sigris took the shovel he brought with him and departed. Much later, Garmin rose from where Sigris left him against the trunk of a gum tree. The light of the morning began to light the familiar patch back to life from this place of death. He took the path, sore and unprepared for what lay ahead, for himself or how to face others. He wanted to find a way. Near the exit of the cemetery, up over the hill and through many reserved plots, Garmin stopped in shock. 2 ornate statues were erected long ago by the town for the purpose of marking the souls of the unknown. Their sharply etched features were worn over time, yet the twin maidens remained with solemn, youthful faces and a hand open for candled censers. One leaned on a shepherd's crook as a guide for the dead, and the other maiden was known as the judge. At the feet of their robed forms had fallen 2 men. Their faces were desolate of normal color and soul. In the state of death, neither of them had been dead for a short time. Both of them were still clothed. Their fate, he assumed, was not from robbery. The smell of rotten meat began to waft into his face in grating supply. Garmin backed away and placed a hand over his face while he continued staring in horror. Town authorities would interrogate him in time over what he saw, so he studied the faces more. It was then, for Garmin, more than the sun dawned on him. Their form and body and profile matched in certain likeness the shadows of men from 2 nights of his life, as they laid without blood or strife, throats cut in ceremonious contempt. He wondered at what it could mean. All right. And I guess this was a story that came from inspiration from Iron Age Media. So I know that Iron Age Media or Iron Age Media does like monthly prompts or something like that. So I guess that's what this was. A lot of detail in there. And kind of I notice you kind of do poetic prose. Well, thanks for sharing that. And that is reading time. Okay. And this is a quick show tonight. A couple more. Just a couple more segments here. Well, we got one more segment. Actually, technically one more segment. And then we'll do the wrap up. Hey, Liam's Lyceum stops by. How you doing? Liam, aka Hembar. How are you? You've been doing a little bit of writing yourself, haven't you? Do you have a blog? Do you do blogging, Liam? Or have you written any kind of like flash fiction that you've submitted to any magazines or e-zines or anything like that? Just curious. Or do you have anything published? All right. This final segment here, kind of like I said before, we're going to kind of be doing a little double dip. We're going to be doing a little double dipping tonight. And this is a little segment that I like to call Hot Topic for Content Creators. Yes, Hot Topic for Content Creators. That's what it says. This is where I pitch a hot topic to you guys, and then you guys turn around, create your own content on said topic, and if you're so inclined, you may tag me in your video or just go ahead and share the link with me, and I may feature your video during a future live stream, or else you're always welcome to either leave your comments down below on this topic, or you can revisit any of my previously pitched hot topics and chime in over there on any of those videos. And I will respond to your comments live on the air. Okay. It's kind of a staple of the Monday night live stream, and things can get pretty hot sometimes, but I also try to keep it informative and with substance. Okay. So it's not just about drama or anything like that. I actually want these to kind of be productive conversations as we kind of continue to embroider these topics. So the first video of each topic is always the initial pitch, but you can watch these videos if you go and check out the playlists. You can watch these videos in any order because we're covering a whole bunch of different subjects as it pertains to whatever topic that we're discussing. Tonight, we're revisiting an oldie but a goodie, and one that is still very relevant and actually becoming more relevant as time goes on. And this is one of our fan favorite topics, if you will, a very emotionally charged topic, and that is the topic of art and artificial intelligence. Yes, believe it or not, we still got a lot to talk about. Hey, welcome. Welcome, DA. Glad you made it. All right, let's get into this topic. Okay, so what I have set up here is I have a video. Okay, I have a video. This is shared through the Discord, our Discord server. Again, links in the show notes down below. I'm going to be responding to this video. And this is, will AI replace fiction writers? And this has to do with the ethics of AI in business. And this comes courtesy of Lover Fighter Writer on YouTube. let's rock and roll. Now, just set this up here. I actually I bookmarked the video, but this video I didn't do any homework on this video. I have to say. But however, I do have something that I'm going to be bringing to this particular subject that he's referring to here. But first, what I'll do is I'll watch his video, and then we'll kind of address the video as we go along. You guys in the chat, feel free to chime in at any time. Just go ahead. Anything that you hear in the video, if you want to share a little bit of context in the comment, I know you can't have like super long comments in live chat, but if you want to just add a little, even if it's like a timestamp or a little context when you're commenting, that would help out.
Hey, it's Alex with Lover Fighter Writer, and in this video, I'm going to talk all about the risks of AI replacing fiction writers and the ethics of artificial intelligence in business, generally speaking, as well as specifically when it comes to writing fiction. So just to cover my experience in the realm of writing and AI writing in general, I've been using AI writing tools probably since within a few months of when they became popular in commercial circles. Now, AI writers existed before that. Obviously, they didn't really gain popularity until they came commercially available. And so the tool that I'm using right here is called Jasper, and it's a good example of a commercial AI writer. It was one of the first ones to come out and really start promoting itself to writers as an AI writing assistant. And I got into this game pretty early, and I've been doing this for, I think, a little over 2 years now, using these tools to assist in my writing. And I also have a somewhat unique experience as a writer and as a user of AI writing tools, because I started out as a fiction writer and I still write fiction, but I used to do that a lot more, and I used to do it professionally as a ghostwriter. And since then, I got into business writing, such as copywriting and content writing. Now I'm a digital marketer, and I offer a variety of marketing services as well as copywriting and content writing. And I still write fiction, and sometimes I help others improve their fiction writing or coach them.
Now, right off the bat, maybe he will be answering this in the video, but when he brings up the whole, he works as a ghostwriter, like a ghostwriter for hire, I'm assuming, and also a copywriter for hire, I'm assuming. I wonder if he, question for you is, obviously he's going to be talking about the ethics, is if he's disclosing the fact that whether he uses this in his professional services, for one, and for two, does he disclose that to his clients, and then three, if his clients care. Either way.
I'm currently working on a novel, and I recently entered.
That's more of like, a survey type of question. Like, I'm just kind of like interested, because I know that there's kind of like two camps. Well, technically there's three. There's always three camps to everything. There's always the middle of the road folks. That's like, if it's done this way, it's good. But if it's done that way, well, it's kind of bad. There's those folks. And then there's the people who are staunchly opposed to it. And then the people who are just like all in, like, they're like, yeah, I'm all about it. But I'm just wondering, as kind of like a survey type of thing, like, are there people, like, how many people are out there are just like, they're just kind of like indifferent to it. Like, they don't care.
Entered a short story into a contest that did fairly well. I also write content and copy pretty much every day for my own business and for my clients. You might think that someone who's in both those circles would be common, and I'm certainly not the only one, but it's actually fairly uncommon for someone to be really heavily invested in both fiction writing and business writing, like content and copywriting, because although both of those things involve writing words and sentences and paragraphs, and there are skills that transfer well between them, such as grammar and creativity and storytelling, there's really not as much crossover as you might think, because a lot of creative fiction writers don't really like business writing, and a lot of business writers don't see the appeal of creative writing. I'm certainly not unique in that I'm into both of those things, but it's not as common as you might think for writers to be into all these different types of writing. I'm in both those camps, and I have quite a bit of experience using AI writing tools, and I've been with them since they became fairly popular in commercial writing circles. And so I just wanted to give you a quick overview of my experience with this kind of thing. And now I'm going to get right into uh, the issue of AI being used for creative fiction writing and the ethics of using AI in business and in writing. Now, the initial reaction to AI writing being introduced as a commercially available online tool was fairly different among fiction writers than it was among business writers. And that was kind of interesting to me because in business writing communities, most people fell into one of three or four categories. You had people who immediately embraced AI writing tools because they saw it as a great opportunity and a great way to streamline their work and be more efficient. And so they kind of dove right in and got right to it. Then there are people who kind of turned their nose up a little bit to AI writers and said, well, I don't use AI, I don't need it, I will never use that. And I was kind of in that camp at first. I don't think I ever thought to myself or said that I would never use the tools. However, I did initially feel like, I don't need this because I'm a pretty proficient fiction writer and also a pretty proficient content and copywriter. So I was already, had good clients, didn't have any problem producing enough content, and and I also have a very kind of creative and unique process to the way that I write. So I didn't really feel like I needed those things, and initially I didn't use them for I think just a few months after I initially learned about them, and then I started using them a little bit. And once I understood how they work and realized the potential there, I got into using them a lot in all different types of writing. Anyways, I was saying that there's kind of three or four different types of reactions, generally speaking, that I saw in the business writing community. So you have people who immediately embraced AI writing. You have people who kind of turned their nose up a little bit, and then may or may not have changed their mind fairly quickly or after more time. And then there's people who felt like they were at risk of being replaced by AI writers. And there's still, if you go into like freelance writing communities or AI writing communities, or even general kind of online business communities, you'll often see people who are just learning about AI writing asking questions like, is AI writing going to replace me? Or like, do I still need to hire writers? And things like that. The answer to the question is it won't replace most writers, and it certainly won't replace very good writers or writers who are very proficient at using the AI. Because, first of all, the AI writers are not like autonomous machines, they still need humans to run them. And if you can use them very efficiently, then you can develop a very streamlined content production process. And that is very good for business. And the other thing is that as good as AI writers are, a lot of companies and businesses and individuals who hire writers still highly value human input. And some of them don't want their writers using AI. Some of them don't care. Some of them specifically want their writers using AI. And there's a lot of
That's one aspect that I kind of touched upon was the fact of valuing. Like, I'm not afraid. Like that's the camp that I'm kind of falling into. Is like I'm not afraid of the AI being replaced by the AI, because the thing about it is the AI. Okay, so let me just say, as in terms of the replacement thing, and I really like this subject, by the way. Honing in on that, specifically that word replace, because when you're coming at it, you say, okay, is the AI going to replace us? Well, that's more of a value judgment. I feel like that's more of a value judgment than anything else. Where I've kind of mentioned on previous subjects on this topic was that, you know, it's almost like a litmus test. This whole, it's weird. It's like this weird, it's almost like there's this weird, like, metaphysical kind of litmus test going on with this whole AI thing. And it's like, it's kind of like shining a light on, like, you know, people's like kind of base sensibilities. It's like, do people even value humanity is more of the question. It's not whether AI is going to replace humanity. It's like, you know, it's like kind of like a litmus test in measuring humanity's current state of affairs, if you will, as far as like whether you want to call it, you know, being your brother's keeper, or, you know, just caring about your fellow man in general. So like when he was saying, there's some people that are like, they're jumping right on it as soon as they realize that they can benefit from it. They're jumping right on it, and they're not really thinking about the principles behind it. They're not thinking about, you know, maybe anything else pertaining to that. And I've already shared my opinion in terms of like art, but I'm just talking about replacement. The reason why I'm not afraid of being replaced by the AI is because I know my worth. You know what I mean? And I hate to make it sound like that, but, you know, I'm just kind of being funny about it, lighthearted about it right now. I'm not trying to be too deep or too serious. But it's one of those things where it's like, real is going to recognize real. That's probably a more accurate statement. Real recognizes real. So in what I mean by that is like, people who care about art, people who understand what art is, they understand that art is a very human thing. So that's why I'm not afraid of being replaced by AI, because people who genuinely value art, who understand what art fundamentally is, would never, you know, would not accept something that was artificially generated and call that art. A simulacra, perhaps. Now, isn't to say, like I said, the aesthetics, we're not talking about the aesthetics. You know, we're just talking about being replaced. So you can call something pretty. Something can look pretty, like the AI generated images. It can look pretty. It can look aesthetically beautiful, but that doesn't make it art. I was thinking about this a little bit today before the show, and I feel like in order to really call, like, what makes something art, and I feel like in order to call something art, then that requires knowledge of that thing. Like, you have to understand it. In order to understand something, you need to know things about it. So I'm talking about like a specific piece itself. What do you have to know before you can even consider it a piece of art? Well, you would have to know who the artist is, right? Well, that right there, AI is dead in the water at that point, because now you need to know who the artist is. Now, if the person is trying to claim it's their own work, well, then they're not disclosing information. So if people do disclose that some or all of the work was generated by artificial intelligence, well, now it's no longer up for debate in terms of whether or not it's a work of art. It's pretty, you know, I feel like it's pretty obvious at that point what the answer is, you know. But there's other things that make, you know, but just because something is 100% made by a human being, that also does not mean that it's automatically a work of art either. I mean, I'm kind of in that camp as well. And that might come off as a little bit pretentious, but I think it's the other way around. I feel like people who don't know what art is and don't care to know what art is, but are willing to just call anything art, I think those people are the ones who are more pretentious, in my opinion. Let's see what's going on here. Liam saying the AI scare. The AI scares like a chimp doing crap. Art post World War II, except now the fear is that the actual good stuff can be or will be easily imitated. It can be. It's forgery. It's like AI forgeries. We've made that comparison. So that and it can be very accurate too. In terms of in terms of like how it looks and the way that it imitates the original artist's style. But that still doesn't make it art, though. That's a capitalism thing, huh? You think it's just a capitalism thing? I definitely think that it stems from like a capitalism thing, and I'm cool with capitalism. That's the thing. I'm cool with capitalism. It's not capitalism that's the enemy. You know what I mean? It's not capitalism that's the problem. You know, it's like a moral thing, really. When you get down to it, it's a cultural thing. It's a moral issue. It's a cultural issue. Now, the ethics, he's talking about the ethics. He's talking about the ethics in the video, and that's what let's kind of focus and talk about the ethical side. See, go on here and see what he says. He's talking about replacement, but he's about to get into the ethics.
Different thoughts on that, but ultimately, I don't see highly proficient writers being replaced by AI or by weaker writers using AI, because while the AI is good for many things, it's not great at exploring very complex ideas or deep themes or maintaining a storyline over a long period of time or a large amount of text. And while those things all apply in different ways,
but that's I know what he's saying right now. It's clumsy, it's clunky. You know, the AI generators, the text generators, they can't do full on narratives, and because there's all these continuity issues that happens when it tries to do like long form fiction. So yeah, I understand that, but that's kind of a moot point. I feel like I don't argue about that type. I never take that stance of like, oh, it's never going to replace me, because have you read what some of that stuff that AI is doing? Or that AI is never going to replace me, because have you seen some of the drawings that thing does? Even though I would argue that the images, the AI generated images, actually do look pretty good. But yeah, the text-based AI, it's not good for creating long-form fiction, at least all on its own, without any kind of guidance whatsoever. But it's a moot point, and I'll say it's a moot point because that's just a technology thing. Yeah, I feel like as the technology improves, it's just a matter of time before the AI is capable of correcting continuity issues and taking care of any kind of potential plot holes in its own narrative that it generates. So there will come a time, I do believe that there will come a time where the technology will be so advanced that the AI will actually be able to tell a coherent story from beginning to end without any plot holes or continuity issues. But it's a moot point. That's not the point. The point of the matter is not art, though. You know, it's not art. It's something that's created, generated, is processed from past material, but it's not art because it didn't come from a human being. That's like kind of a prerequisite, because art is a human thing. Art is a human activity. It's culture. It's culturally based. So if everything's created by the AI, well, at that point, what is culture at that point? That's a very big philosophical question to ask yourself, to wonder. But we're not talking about that in this today.
To the business writing world, they're actually much more important in the fiction writing world. And so it was interesting to me because, like I said, those were kind of the reactions of business writers when they started learning about the AI writing tools. And when the fiction writers started learning about AI writing tools, you did have people that had those reactions, but
Are you
the vast majority of them, or at least a very
in
vocal
university?
segment of them, seemed to have a very uh, angry or perhaps fearful response to it. Whereas in business writing circles, people mostly said, "This is a great tool. This can help me," or they said, uh, "I don't need this. I'm good without it." Um, in the fiction writing camp, people had those opinions too, but there were also a lot of people who seemed very passionate about the idea that AI writing tools are a terrible thing, and it's going to devalue writers, and it's going to replace writers. It's going to make people lose work, and like very, very strong opinions from fiction writers, which seemed to fairly consistently be saying that AI writing is a bad thing for writers in every way. And I found this really interesting because, in my opinion, AI writing is less useful for fiction writing than it is for uh, business writing. And it's very, very much further away from replacing fiction writers than it is for replacing business writers. And a lot of people don't realize this because, like I said earlier, there's actually not that much crossover between the two. So there's probably not a lot of people out there that are using AI at a high level for writing both fiction and uh, business. And so I do use AI tools for both of those things.
Oh, there's the answer right there. Now I want to know, do you disclose that information to your clients before they hire you? Lover, fighter, writer. No judgment. This is just strict curiosity. And then I want to know if they actually care whether or not you do.
But I find it's much more useful and effective, and it replaces much more of the process.
But I will say that this isn't what you're talking about right now. You're tapping into that ethics side. You're starting to kind of edge into that ethics side. And now, based on what you're saying right here, I can already tell that you're probably going to have a little bit of a bias leaning when it comes to your ethical beliefs on this whole AI thing. And I can already tell you right now that your stance will not align with my stance as far as ethics go. But I'm willing to hear you out. I want to hear what you have to say, and then we'll go from there. And like I say, I do have something that I'm going to be sharing that I found earlier tonight on that subject. Shit, there was something else that I was going to say too.
Or assist with much more of the process in business writing than it does in fiction writing. So to answer the question of whether AI will replace fiction writers.
Oh, that's what I was going to say. So you're just looking at it from what I can tell. You're looking at it from like kind of like a surface level. You kind of do strike me as somebody who's looking at this whole AI thing from a very surface level approach. And I don't mean that in like a, in a derogatory sense. It's just it is what it is. You're talking about it's a tool. This AI thing is a tool. I argue it's a machine because it's processing material. It's not a tool like a paintbrush is a tool. Paintbrush requires a human being to use it, actually guide the brush. Whereas the AI thing, all you're doing is kind of just feeding it a prompt. You're feeding it a prompt, and then it's almost like you're typing in a keypad, right? You're typing in instructions on a keypad like you would on a machine, and then you're hitting enter, and then the machine then does its thing. It processes material that already exists, that material being other people's work, and then it spits out something new on the other end. So that's what the AI generators are actually doing. Now, it doesn't necessarily have to be other people's work. I know that you actually are able to use your own work as reference to train the AI. So it's not always other people's work. I do know that some of the applications do allow you to use your own work as reference. So for instance, some people who use the AI just as a quote unquote tool, what they'll do is they'll upload their own work, like say they do a sketch or a drawing or something like that. They'll upload it to the AI, and then the AI app will enhance their work. So there's people that are doing that type of thing, or like it spruces it up, or it could take the character and put them in a setting, something like that. I know that there are people out there using it for that reason, and not everybody wants to commercialize it either, who are using it for pragmatic reasons. I know some people just use it because they want to create character concept art so they can kind of get a visual of what their character in a novel or something like that would look like. Perhaps for promo materials or for advertising purposes or something like that, like you're saying here with business copy, but you're talking about the text version. Oh, that's interesting. That's interesting. Funny. I actually watched, God, I should say I tried to watch The Island of Dr. Monroe the other night. And I think it was the 1996 one with Val Kilmer. I tried to watch that fucking movie's horrible. But that kind of comes to mind when you're talking about can animals and machines be persons? Well, what if they start blending the two? What if we start getting like this technology? You ever hear the Neuralink? Elon Musk, I think it was him. He's talking about the Neuralink thing, where it's like human beings will be able to have computers literally implanted into their brain. So you could access computer information or data directly in your brain somehow. And that just seems like crazy sci-fi stuff. But the reason why I brought up Island of Dr. Monroe is because they were mixing animal and human genes. So it's like kind of humanizing animals in a way. The blending the worlds together. It's such crazy times that we live in, huh? Rachel is here. Hi, Rachel. Welcome. The Neuralink. You don't want any of that, huh? Yeah, I'm right there with you. I would like to stay organic. I don't even take vaccines, you know. I don't even get my flu shots every year. I haven't had a flu shot in years. And surprise, surprise, I also haven't had the flu in years. Now, go figure. But I like organic. I'm not like 100% organic. I'm not like that. But I like I like human beings. I like human beings the way that they are. And then start messing around with stuff and modifying things and getting into that. I feel like you're starting to get into the realm of that weird science stuff, and I'm not into all that weird stuff as far as that goes. In fiction, yes, there's a place for that. In real life, well, let's just keep it in the fiction, huh? That's what I say. All
right. My answer to that is, if it can, it's very far away from being something that's really commercially available. It's possible that there are AI writers out there somewhere that can write really good, effective stories that seem like they're written by a human. But I've never seen them, and I've worked with a lot of the best tools that are available right now. So if AI ever can write fictional stories as well as humans, I think it's a very long ways away. It's going to take much more to get AI writers to that level than it will take them to get to a level where they can write effective content and copy as well or better than humans. But with that said, there are a lot of really effective ways that creative fiction writers can use AI to help them through some of the areas that might be more frustrating, some of the parts of the fiction writing process that are a little bit more frustrating and a little bit more difficult for them, whether it's because it's just a difficult area or if it's because it's a weakness in their skill set. There's a lot of bridges that AI writers can help you cross, regardless of whether you write fiction or nonfiction or business content or whatever the case may be. Now, just to briefly touch on the ethics of using AI in business, in a minute, I'll get into the best ways to use AI for fiction writing. Just to briefly go over the way I see the ethics of using AI, I had someone who I was talking to about capitalism recently ask me what I thought the impact of artificial intelligence on capitalism is. And my answer was that with the state that AI is currently at, that's like asking what the impact of animal labor or the internal combustion engine was on capitalism. What I mean when I say that it's like asking what the impact of animals and combustion engines are on capitalism. Anytime that you add something to business or to capitalism, there's always a chance that it may have some impact on the amount or the quality of work that is required of humans. So, with the examples of like labor animals or engines, obviously animal labor and machines are extremely beneficial to business and capitalism because they enable more work to be done more efficiently. Uh, but on the other hand, if you look at it from a purely, I guess, ethical or human rights type of perspective, then you could say that anytime that you introduce something like that, you are potentially removing jobs from people. If you're delivering products to your customers and you don't have engines or motors or labor animals, then you would need a lot of delivery people spread over significant space so that you could have them make deliveries on foot or on bicycles or something like that. And you would be providing a lot of fairly low skilled jobs to people across this broad area to fulfill all of your delivery requirements. But as soon as you add, horses that people can ride or vehicles, now you don't need as many delivery people, and those delivery people can cover much more ground much faster. So the job starts to require a little bit more skill and much fewer people. And there's many examples of that happening in history where something about the way that a lot of businesses operate is suddenly upgraded via technology. And then as a result of that, some people might lose jobs, some people might get new jobs, some people might start having to adopt a new skill in order to keep their job, and it's often looked at as a bad thing, and it certainly probably can be in certain circumstances. Uh, but there's this kind of strange perception that just because artificial intelligence is more new and advanced than anything we've seen in the past, that somehow that makes it bad, whereas having cars or bicycles or planes is seen as more acceptable. But of course, like anything else, I think that the ethics really depend on how it's used and what the goals are behind its use. So, as an example specific to AI writing, BuzzFeed recently announced that they are adopting AI writing to generate ideas and write the content for their articles. And a lot of people were kind of upset by that, I guess, because maybe that's going to mean that they can fire a lot of writers, that they don't need to have as many writers in order to generate all their content. And they might be upset because of that, or they might be upset because they like reading BuzzFeed articles and they like kind of the human aspect of them. They like the fact that they're written by other people about other people for them.
And that's the point that I'm stressing, is that it's actually written by a human being, and there are people out here that will continue to want that. So that's why I'm not afraid of the whole AI thing. Hey, you want to use AI, create a bunch of content? More power to you. All it means is that content created or material written by human beings becomes that much more valuable. Why? Because you're going to have a bunch of knuckle draggers that are just becoming accustomed to using the AI generative AI. And they're not going to know how to use their own imagination. They're not going to know how to, how to do the writing for themselves. Maybe supplemental. Maybe they'll understand how to do like line editing, grammatical type stuff. But if they've never exercised their own imagination, it's not going to be nearly as valuable to people who appreciate art and appreciate what art is. I know you're talking about copy here. I say perhaps with copy, it might not be as much of an issue because with copy, it's just content. And I've said before, content is not the same as art. Art is separate from just content. They're not the same. So yeah, if you're just writing copy and it's just content, then really it just comes down to the substance, delivering the substance, the meat of the article, if you will, if it's an informative article. But if it's an editorial, I would argue that kind of is, it's not, if it's not in the same vein as art, it's definitely a branch of the same limb, I would say. It's a branch off of the same limb, because I write critical editorials, and you definitely got to have some creative writing skills, even when you're writing editorials, when you're writing opinion pieces, is what I'm assuming you're talking about here with BuzzFeed. So even when you're writing opinion pieces, that's still, that's still, it still takes some skill in creative writing, and you still have to put your imagination to work. So if you just have if you just have a bunch of knuckle draggers, basically just all they know how to do is just type in prompts, for our write article on sexism in workplace, enter, that person, and then even if they attribute the article to that person, it's still not going to be nearly, it's not going to have nearly the credence or the value as an article or a piece of work written 100% by a human being. And now we get a new thing added to the market that I don't think I've said before. I might have mentioned in passing, but I haven't really stressed it. And that's the 100% man-made seal of approval. The 100% man-made, kind of like, oh, this is, almost in the same, it's like, I feel like it's different though, because you could say, oh, well, then there's always the virtue signaling of like, oh, this is organic, this is an organic product, the virtue signal. Oh, these are, free range. These are eggs that came from free range chickens. Don't get that factory stuff. The virtue signal type of seal or label. But I think that this is different though, because all you're saying is just, hey, this was 100% made by a human being, no AI generation whatsoever. It's kind of like more in line with the whole GMO thing. GMO has been stigmatized. The genetically modified organisms or whatever products, the GMO products, that carries a lot of stigma. And I feel like, I don't know, the AI thing might have that same type of stigma, at least amongst people who take their work seriously, who appreciate and respect the craft of creative writing, that is, or art and illustration, that they can then feel proud to put that label on their work and say 100% man-made. You know what I mean? That would hold some weight. Of course, there's going to be people who will try to scam and say that it is, but it's really not. But then that just opens the door to scandal at that point. Are you willing to use AI and then lie about it after the fact? You know what I mean?
In a very kind of human engaging way. And so they might be upset that they're going to be, I guess you could say, tricked by the AI into thinking that they're reading something written by a human when they're not. So there were a lot of people that seemed upset by that. But then apparently BuzzFeed's stock jumped significantly after they announced that they were going to be implementing AI writing, because evidently a lot of investors felt that that was a good thing and that that might make the company more profitable. The ethics of using AI in business as AI currently exists is basically the exact same as using any other advancement in technology, which is to say that it can be good or it can be bad based on how it's used and what the goals are behind its implementation. And for the most part, I think that so far the use of AI has been positive, but there are certainly negative implementations of it. Anyways, I've dwelled on that enough. I'm going to move right into how to use AI writing tools for fiction writing specifically. Now, one of the reasons that I believe that AI is much further from replacing fiction writers than it is from replacing content and copywriters is that AI is not great at writing prose, especially things like maintaining a specific character and dialogue styles and storylines over large amounts of prose. It seems to struggle with that. And another issue there is that most fiction writers, especially popular fiction writers who have a large body of work in their past, tend to be known for their narrative voice and for the type of language that they use and for the type of tone and energy and vibe that people get from their writing. And although AI can replicate that to a certain extent, it would be very difficult for an AI as they currently exist to really replicate that over the long term in an entire novel or even an entire short story. So I don't really recommend trying to use AI to actually write fiction for you or to write the prose for you because it's not very good at it. And even if it could do it, that's it replacing the writer, which is not your goal as a writer, or at least my goal as a writer is to use AI to assist me. So, what I use AI for in fiction writing is almost entirely idea generation, brainstorming, quick research. And one of my favorite things about AI is that you can ask it more complex questions than you can ask, for example, a search engine or your basic database of information. And so this is Jasper Chat that I'm in right now. It's based on the same software that runs Chat GPT, which has recently just blown up the popularity of AI writing in general. And so basically, I can just type whatever I want in this box here, as long as it's less than 4,000 characters. And Jasper's AI will read that and then respond. So I can ask questions, I can ask it to generate ideas or lists or basically anything I want, and it'll respond according to the vast amounts of research that it's done in the past. So I'm just going to scroll up a little bit and kind of show how some of the examples that I used that have to do with writing. The other day, I was writing a short comedy sketch, which is something that I started doing recently just for fun. And a friend of mine likes making short films and funny videos and things like that. And he sent me one that him and his friends made. And just watching it kind of gave me an idea for a sketch. So I wrote it and I sent it to him. And then I had another idea for one. So I wrote that and I sent it to him. And the second one that I wrote was kind of based around like a funny turn of phrase that modern people say. And so I got thinking to myself, maybe I could write other sketches about funny turns of phrase. And so I came into Jasper Chat here and I said, what are some silly modern turns of phrase that people say? And it gave me 5 silly turns of phrase. And then I said, give me 10 more. And it gave me 10 more. I haven't really done anything with these yet, but this is just an example of how you can use it for brainstorming. Like I was thinking to myself that, silly things that people commonly say can be good material for coming up with comedy ideas. And so I just wanted a list of those. And it gave me a list of mostly fairly modern ones because that's what I asked for. I asked for modern turns of phrase. And then obviously another way that you can use these tools is just to get answers to questions and to get kind of custom instructions. So I asked it about some popular writing techniques and strategies, and it gave me some pretty good answers there. And then, as I've shown in other tutorials, one of the best ways to use the AI writing tools for
So I'll just say it looks like it looks like you're just having your fun with it. Right now, you're not really saying anything about trying to monetize this or anything like that. And hey, more power to you. We're talking about the ethics of this. There is no ethics involved. If you're just using the AI to have fun, just as like a hobby, or like you're just doing your fun little thing, like you say, you're doing your skits, your comedy bits with your friend or something like that to like entertain each other, that has nothing to do with ethics. The ethics is just a legal thing. Ethics has to do with principles, and it's just that only applies when you're trying to monetize something. You're trying to do something, or it applies to your business. Using the AI for fun, I don't have any qualms with that, and I've said that before. I don't really care if people are using their AI, but that has nothing to do with ethics, though. If you're literally just using it for fun,
or like research and for learning things, is to ask it a question like this.
using the AI as a glorified Google, again, that also has nothing to do with ethics.
And then if you want to learn more about one of these points, then you can just copy either the first part or the entire point into the text box here, and then just ask it to expand on that or tell you more or tell you how you could use that in a certain way. And it's really good for kind of helping you guide your thinking when you're learning something or learning how to implement something. And then one of my favorite things about AI writers actually is that they're just great at generating lists and coming up with information that you would otherwise have to kind of labor over. And one of the things that I've always been terrible at is naming my characters, whether
you must are you Gen Z? Are you Gen Z or are you millennial? That was cute.
I'm writing fantasy or modern fiction or science fiction or anything else. I always struggle with coming up with names for my characters that I like. And when I wrote that short story I was talking about a few months ago, I was having trouble choosing names for the two main characters. And then I just came into Jasper Chat and I asked it for names of the type of person that they were, and it gave me some really great results. And so this is just an example that I did here. I said list 10 names appropriate for a male Canadian pop star from Northern Ontario, and it gave me some pretty interesting sounding names that you might associate with a male pop star. And then here I kind of came into how you can use it to develop ideas for stories. And
male
so the
pop
first thing I
stars
asked
from
it
Sri
was
Lanka.
to list the 10 most popular fiction genres, and it gave me this list. So I took the top two, which are fantasy and romance, and I said list the 10 most popular romance tropes. And if you're not familiar with romance writing, not all, but a lot of romance stories are based around a large group of existing tropes, which are just commonly used starting points for romantic stories or for different kinds of stories. Like there are also fantasy tropes and
Enemies to
sci-fi
lovers,
tropes
baby.
and so
Yeah.
on. But the genre that I see tropes focused on the most is in romance, and I think that's because there are a lot of romance tropes that people like to read a lot of books on. So a lot of people who read a lot of romance tend to like books and stories that are within a certain set of tropes that are the most appealing to them. And so I got a list of tropes here. And then I came down here and I said, write 5 one-sentence plot ideas for a fantasy romance novel using the enemies to lovers trope and the billionaire trope. And I did that. And then I noticed that they were it seemed like the AI was kind of getting confused about using two tropes at the same time. So I came down here and I just said, write 5 one-sentence plot ideas for a fantasy romance using the enemies to lovers tropes, and then I figured I could just make one of the I could just make one of the characters very wealthy, and then that would implement the billionaire trope alongside the enemies to lovers trope. And so I got these plot outlines. And then I just asked the AI, why is extreme wealth appealing to non-wealthy people? And it gave me a kind of an interesting response to that. And so that's another way that you can use AI writers, is that if you're trying to explore a character's motivation or a character's perspective, and you're having trouble getting into their head. For example, if you have a villain who does something bad and you're trying to give them a deeper motivation than just that they're evil or hateful or something, you want to give them a real reason for doing.
It's like you're bouncing ideas off of the AI. I would say the problem with the issue with that, well, for one, it's like uh, I, that I would kind of take issue with
Doing.
because it's almost like you're treating the AI like it's a writing buddy, which you know it kind of strikes me as odd a little bit. It would I would feel it's a little bit odd. Like I say, using it as glorified Google search, that's one thing. Like if you're looking up specific like trivial knowledge or information or something like that, but like asking it like complex like questions, like you would be like taught like you as if you were like asking a writing buddy for advice. I don't know, that kind of rubs me the wrong way. I don't know if I would be down with that. Because the reason for it is not just being dismissive. It's for good reason, and that reason being manipulation. Because you're taking what the AI you're taking what the AI says to heart. And it's like, why are you listening to the AI? Why are you caring about what the AI gives you for a response? Why not value what comes from your own imagination or comes from, a friend or a colleague or a peer? Because there's a relationship there, right? You're having a relationship with a real human being in that sense. And you're saying, hey, I got this character, and you're having a conversation, right? About a piece of work that you're creating. You're not having a conversation with AI. That doesn't that's like part of the part. It's sometimes it's not always about the end product. It's about the journey too. Like, so like the artist's journey, like it's almost like, I don't know how many times like I've come to the end or have been nearing the end of a project, and you kind of get that, you start to kind of get that that post project depression, if you will. It's like, well, now what do I do? You know what I mean? Because then you start trying to like stretch it out and like, well, what if I change this? Or what if I did that? And what if I did this? To kind of stretch that project out a little bit longer than maybe necessary, but part of that process could also be sparking up conversation with people who are close to you, people in your peer group. You know what I mean? Like I said, your colleagues, other writers and stuff like that. And it inspires that type of conversation. It encourages that to have that kind of conversation with other human beings. And that's actually like part of the whole journey of that becomes a part of the whole journey of the project itself. And the more that you start to get away from that human element, you start leaning more onto this AI thing. Well, I mean, you're putting yourself in a position where I feel like, in my opinion, that you are more susceptible to manipulation by the AI, because it's already been shown that the AI can have what would otherwise be considered precognitive biases if it were coming from a human being. But it's generating these precognitive biases to, whether it be like if you ask it politically, like if you ask the AI a politically charged question, well, the response may actually be may actually reflect a cognitive bias that an AI has no business having, right? So it has to come from somewhere. It's coming from a human being. So it's coming from the people who are pulling the strings. And that's something to be afraid of right there. Because the more that people start using this AI stuff, that's the real fear. The real fear is it's not the AI itself. It's the people who stop thinking for themselves and start leaning on this AI to do the thinking for them. And at that point, it's just the puppet master. You know what I mean? It's hop, skip, and a jump away from puppet master. You know, kind of like how we have today in our politically charged environment that we have today with social media. You can already see the puppet masters at play with technocrats and their algorithms. But I digress.
Even if you're having trouble coming up with something on your own, you could ask an AI writer just the same way that you could ask a friend or a fellow writer for input.
No.
It might
See,
give
is
you
the AI your friend? I don't want to get too personal here, but you're making me chuckle a little bit. You know, you're starting to sound like you need to go outside and touch grass. I'm just saying.
Would otherwise lack. And again, these are not a replacement for your own brainstorming. It's not a replacement for your own critical thinking. And it's not even a replacement for discussing things with friends or family members or other writers. That's all still very important.
I was starting to get worried.
But in the same way that it's much more convenient if you're writing.
It sound like you're a type of guy that might have replica uploaded on. So you got your waifu, virtual waifu.
Something and you need a piece of information that's not in your brain, it's much more convenient to just Google it than it is to like go to the library and look it up in a book. And in the same way, a lot of things are much more convenient when you can just quickly ask an AI for an answer rather than having to Google it and read through a few different articles, or rather than having to, ask a friend or two, or whatever the case may be. There's just a lot of occasions where using AI in this way is very convenient and very fast and very helpful for writers. So in terms of the writing for
right, and those are all pragmatic, those are all pragmatic reasons. You're just explaining the pragmatic reasons. But but you can't overlook the philosophical stuff, the metaphysical stuff as well. The pragmatic stuff is just like, okay, you're just using it, you're looking at it, just using it as a tool. But there's also value in having those conversations as well with a real human being. There's value in that. Just because the AI can do it, much faster doesn't mean that it's more valuable than having that conversation with an actual friend or an actual family member or an actual colleague or peer.
Business, I think I already mentioned that my favorite way to do that is just to ask the AI a question and then use what it says to generate further questions, whether you want more similar ideas or you want a further explanation or an elaboration, or you want more details on how to do something. So like I did here, I just said list the top 5 novel writing strategies, and it gave me those. And then if I wanted to know more about those, I would just, for example, know your audience. I could copy that and I could say, give me a 5-step process for learning how to know your audience as a fiction writer. And it would give me, those steps. I could ask for more steps. I could ask for elaboration on each of those steps.
So this is all, you're just basically what you're doing here is you're giving tips and tricks on how and examples of how you can use the apps themselves, these AI generators, to your own benefit as a tool. And that's fine, but that doesn't have, again, this has nothing to do with ethics, though. This has nothing. You're not talking about the actual ethics of it. The tips and tricks for those of you, for anyone who may be watching and they're interested, maybe you're helping them out as far as like how they could use this to their own benefit, as far as that goes. But I was kind of looking forward to the ethical stance on it. But this has nothing to do with ethics. The ethics has to do with how you are applying this information that you're garnering. So these are the methods in which you are garnering information from this AI, but you're not really explaining the ethical stance of it. Like the ethics would be like the legal standing of it. So I'm going to call the video right there. I do appreciate you sharing that with me. And if by all means, You can respond, leave your comments on anything that I said in response to your video, even if it's disagreements, anything like that. Feel free. But there's actually something that I wanted to share that does actually fall under the umbrella of the ethics. There's actually came across this document, which is actually published just this past month in March. Okay, and I'm going to leave a link to this in the show notes for you guys if you want to read the whole thing on your own time. Okay, but this actually comes from the federalregister.gov. All right, so this has to do with copyright registration guidance, works, and then the full title is Works containing material generated by artificial intelligence. Okay, so this is a rule by the Copyright Office, Library of Congress, on March 16th, 2023. So it's the agency of the U.S. Copyright Office, Library of Congress. It's a statement of policy. And the summary of this is the Copyright Office issues this statement of policy to clarify its practices for examining and registering works that contain material generated by the use of artificial intelligence technology. So it kind of gets into like the main bullet points here. We have supplementary information. So it'll kind of go over like the background a little bit. But then in the second portion, it says the human authorship requirement. So let me read just a little bit from this. It says, all right, just make sure I wasn't. So let me read a little bit from this. In the office's view, it is well established that copyright can protect only material that is the product of human creativity. Most fundamentally, the term author, which is used in both the Constitution and the Copyright Act, excludes non-humans. The office's registration policies and regulations reflect statutory and judicial guidance on this issue. All right. In its leading case on authorship, the Supreme Court used language excluding non-humans in interpreting Congress's constitutional power to provide authors the exclusive right to their writings. So in Barrow Giles, lithographic Co. versus Sarony, a defendant accused of making unauthorized copies of a photograph argued that the expansion of copyright protection to photographs by Congress was unconstitutional because, quote, a photograph is not a writing nor the production of an author, end quote, but instead created by a camera. The court disagreed, holding that there was no doubt the Constitution's copyright clause permitted photographs to be subject to copyright, so far as they are representatives of original intellectual conceptions of the author. The court defined an author as he to whom anything owes its origin, originator, maker, one who completes a work of science or literature. It repeatedly referred to such authors as human, describing authors as a class of persons, and copyright as the exclusive right of a man to the production of his own genius or intellect. Based on some of the art coming out today, the amount of genius or intellect could probably be argued. So there's a little bit on that. It also goes into the office's application of the human authorship requirement. So I guess they're kind of revamping the whole copyright application process. Maybe something to look into. And it gives some guidance for the copyright applicants. And there's also like guidance for copyright applicants says how to submit applications for works containing AI generated material. So there's a whole process now involved in this. Let me touch on that. Let me see what they say on that. It says individuals who use AI technology to creating a work may claim copyright protection for their own contributions to that work. They must use the standard application and in it identify the author and provide a brief statement in the author created field that describes the authorship that was contributed by a human. For example, an applicant who incorporates AI generated text, okay, so this might apply to you, lover, fighter, writer. For example, an applicant who incorporates AI generated text into a larger textual work should claim the portions of the textual work that is human authored. And an applicant who creatively arranges the human and non-human content within a work should fill out the author-created field to claim selection, coordination, and arrangement of describe human-authored comment created by the author and describe AI content generated by artificial intelligence. So see, now the copyright offices, they're requiring disclosure here. I had a feeling that this was, it was just a matter of time. But they're making it's a requirement for that kind of for AI disclosure. Applicants should not list an AI technology applicants should not list an AI technology or the company that provided it as an author or co-author simply because they used it when creating their work. Yeah, so there's no accreditation. It's a disclosure thing. So that just goes to show right there. Because at first I was talking about it being like there being like a form of accreditation, but even the Copyright Office, they're not even recognizing. They're simply just not recognizing AI generated anything as something that can be accredited in any shape, fashion, or form, which should tell you something right there. But yeah, all right. So that's that, and it says goes on. And there's some other thing. It goes on. It says how to correct a previously submitted or pending application. So for those who got in early, the early birds, they might have a mess to kind of undo. And then they have their conclusions. So I'll leave it's interesting. It's interesting. Just keeping an eye on this. I told you I'd be keeping an eye on this stuff as things develop. And of course, the conversation continues. I want to hear what you guys have to say. So just go ahead, drop your comments down below, and let me know where you stand on this whole art and artificial intelligence conversation and debate. All right, now we're going to wrap things up. Do a little wrap up. Let's wrap up the show tonight. But first, let's pick out some theme music for this wrap up. What are we going to do for theme music tonight? How about a little Hello Neighbor? I'm glad you all showed up. Good neighbors. But before we go, what we're going to do is we're going to check out some comments. Yes, that's right. Left by you during the week. Let's see what fine folks have been stopping by the channel. Would you look at this? Speak of the devil. From last week, let's see what we have here. Yes. From last week's stream, we have Liam's Lyceum here. He's a good neighbor. He's a good neighbor. He says, thanks for featuring my poetry video. That complete Conan is something I really need to get at some point. It looks awesome. And purple prose, in and of itself, is just kind of there. But when used great, I think it's awesome. I really like Clark Ashton Smith's prose, and it is purple. I wasn't a big fan of the darkness that comes before, and it's purple prose, though. It's been a long minute, but Fitzgerald is definitely poetic, and impressing the ladies with poetry seemed to work well with Byron. I really like that personal poetry at the end of a chapter from a character. I'm sitting here now thinking about the novella I just finished and how I didn't fit any poetry into it. Liam's Lyceum, everyone. I appreciate you stopping by the channel, good sir. And I'll be keeping an eye out for your work. Well, that's it for the live stream this week, ladies and gentlemen. I hope y'all had some fun. I hope y'all discovered something new. But don't fret, because guess what, neighbor? I will be back here for you. Next week, same time, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That's 6 p.m. Pacific. That's right. I hope you have a good week.